Members of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Justice have visited Mangaung Correctional Centre in the Free State, and that relates to the escape of convicted murderer and rapist Thabo Bester from the maximum security facility. Now, news agency GroundUp had revealed that Bester escaped from prison back in May last year, and that the burnt body found in his cell, in fact, is not his. MPs are also seeking answers from multinational private security company G4S, which was in charge of that facility at the time of Bester's brazen escape. Let's get you more on this now. Bringing Justice Portfolio Committee member Glynnis Breytenbach, who joins us via our video link this morning. Great to see you as always, Glynnis. Thanks for making time to speak to us. As I mentioned just before the break, I mean, the Correctional Services Department, when they gave that briefing last week, spoke about there being a paralysis of security measures at Mangaung Prison. To what extent did that correlate with what you found there?
Well, first of all, there was no engagement last week. We had planned an engagement earlier this week. The committee postponed it because G4S sent us a last-minute letter requiring to be summoned to the committee, suggesting that they needed the protection of the Powers and Privileges Act. So the whole thing was postponed. So there was no engagement. There were presentations prepared and disseminated, but there was no engagement. We then, on the day it was postponed, decided to travel to Bloemfontein yesterday to visit this facility and to see for ourselves the layout so that when they do come, we are better prepared to engage with them. And certainly we found that systems had been paralyzed. The entire process appears to have been sidelined, and there are many more questions now having visited the facility.
Sure.
Extremely concerning questions.
Yeah. Are you able to take us through some of them? Like some of the new questions you had after visiting the facility yesterday?
Well, again, I don't want to show my hand. We're going to be engaging with G4S next week, and we've seen what we've seen. They were cooperative. I will agree that they were cooperative. We were met with by the Commissioner of the Correctional Services yesterday morning at the Mangaung prison. There were members of G4S also present to take us through the process. But there are a lot of systems in place in that prison, very sophisticated systems, and each one appears to coincidentally not have been functioning on that particular night. So it raises a lot of questions. Protocols were overridden. Security was overridden. There was a problem with a lot of the the security cameras. There were a myriad of problems. So we certainly have a serious concern about what happened there that night.
Right. And of course, all of these different elements inform your approach to at least your own kind of investigation, right? I mean, I think for a long time, people who have been speaking officially on this case had kind of shied away from calling it an orchestrated escape. Like, you know, these can't all be coincidences, especially as you mentioned, there are such strict measures or security checks at that facility.
No, the security there is very modern, state of the art, computerized. There's a sophisticated backup system. None of these things worked on that particular night. It certainly isn't a spur of the moment escape. It took a lot of planning. It took a lot more than one person to plan it, and it would have taken I presume quite a lot of money to make it happen, because certainly there wasn't only one role player. There must have been several role players to bypass the kind of security systems that are in place in that prison. And each and every one of them, as we progressed to them, as we asked questions about them, so it appeared that each and every system had been overridden that night. So many coincidences, way too many to be reasonable. The only conclusion that can be drawn is that it was a very well orchestrated escape with many people assisting.
How does that inform who you reckon should appear before the committee? Because I'm sure it doesn't just stop with G4S.
Certainly not. The committee, the chairperson of the committee has written to the speaker to summons a number of people. So DCS will be there. All the people who came voluntarily earlier this week will be there. G4S has been summoned. I'm quite sure that their security subcontractor will be summoned who does the IT. They have in fact been summoned. There's some medical personnel that need to be summoned that will be done. So yeah, there's a wide range of people, and it certainly will take quite probably more than one day to deal with all of them.
Yeah. How worried are you that in the interim, in the lead up to, all these investigations unfolding, people will be removing the evidence, so to speak? I mean, for one, we know that if there were individuals working at that facility who actually aided and abetted Thabo Bester's escape, they very well could be removed from that facility and given some kind of deal to hush money to move away from the scene, so to speak. In other words, a cover-up may be unfolding as you and I speak. Are you concerned about that?
I'm very concerned about it, and I'm quite sure that an attempted cover-up will be underway. I'm quite sure it started immediately after this escape. The cell was washed down for some unknown reason before the police even got there. There are a whole myriad of issues that arise from the events that took place before, during, and after the escape. Members have been suspended, preventing access to them. Members have been transferred, making it more difficult to access them. But of course, in the 21st century, technology is a bit of a bugger. So you'll be able to trace all of those things. You may not be able to trace the members immediately, but certainly you'll be able to trace the steps that were taken, and that can't be erased.
Yeah. Of course, there's a lot of reporting that's been done by GroundUp, really, who's been credited for bringing the story so sharply into the public discourse. And part of what they've reported on is how the Deputy Correctional Services Minister apparently had been sent an email last year already about this escape. What answers do you reckon need to come from the Deputy Minister?
Well, if it's correct that the Deputy Minister was informed of these events during the course of last year, then certainly has questions to answer. He did come voluntarily to the committee. He was quite prepared to go ahead, and I'm quite sure that he will come to the committee and explain himself.
Absolutely. All right. Yeah, we'll certainly see how that unfolds. But for now, Glynnis Breytenbach, thanks for speaking to us. I imagine many more people who are watching this discussion also have a whole lot more questions, like you, on the other side of that visit. We'll see how it unfolds. Glynnis Breytenbach is a member of Parliament in the Justice Portfolio Committee.